What is going on, you guys? So in this video of the training module, this is the second video. If you have, left the course and maybe taken a couple of days off and you're coming back to it, this is the second video. So this one, we're talking on training phase in particular. It's going to be on the shorter side. It's not going to be as long as the last one was. It's not going to be a 30-minute long video. Don't quote me on that. It might go on lengthier, but like it shouldn't be super in depth because we just covered a lot of things in the last video. Just to give a quick recap, we talked on the importance of training structure. So we talked on progression, which makes up volume, which is weight, reps, and sets, and the amount of exercises. We also talked about tempo, time under tension, energy reserves, RPE. We briefly touched on. We're going to get to that in another future video. So again, I'll unpack all of that a bit more. That again is rate of perceived exertion. We also touched on proper recovery, adaptation, and strength, strategy, efficiency, new adaptation threshold, preventing and eliminating overtraining and joint pain. And I gave you guys a brief context. Hopefully it was rather brief. But in this video, it's going to be specifically on training phases. So I'm going to also open my whiteboard up, just like I did in the previous video. And this way you guys can see. But so we have phases, right? So for example, we're going to have phases, and I'm just going to put this out so you guys have a better idea, right? So boom. So let's call these boxes right here phases, right? And let's say, for example, you are in a 24-week program, right? That is one of the programs that I have at the moment is a 24-week, which is a 6-month program. Part of the reason that I frame my coaching as 24 weeks rather than just 6 months is because, a lot of times people look at it as like, hey, well, if I have 6 months, then like 1 month is not going to really kill me and they start to slack off. But if we have it framed as 24 weeks, then it's okay. Every single week is very important. You have to take this serious. And worst case scenario, if you have a bad week or two, like you still got 22, 23 weeks left, right? So that's why I frame it that way. A lot of people in the fitness space frame it as weekly. And, when it comes to nutrition, all of you know that like we're looking at calories on a weekly basis, not a daily basis. And this is why we have more data when we look more at the micro rather than over the macro, right? People a lot of times are like, I've been going to the gym for 6 months and I haven't seen progress. And it's like, well, what have you done? It's like, well, I've just been doing the same thing for 6 months. Like, bro, no wonder you haven't made progress, right? So this is why I give you guys individual training phases. Okay, so let's call this phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. Now with phase 1, again, we talked about adaptation, how your body adapts, right? So we need to make sure that as we go from phase 1 to phase 2 to phase 3 and then to phase 4, that we make sure each phase is progressively more and more challenging and that your body responds in a way that it actually makes the results and gets the physical results that you want each phase, right? This is why if you've ever run into a plateau, like I know some of you guys in here have, plateaus are no fun because that just basically means that like, hey, what you're doing now is not working and you're doing either the same amount or less, or your body's not responding. All right. So this is what I want to prevent from coming up is plateaus. Because why the heck would you be in the gym just to maintain? Some people want to maintain just because they like their routine. But I truly don't think many people actually want to maintain. I think that we always have this mental thing where we want to aim for a higher goal and get in a better shape. There's a reason that the top athletes still want to get better because they know that there's a little bit better they can do, right? And it's just a good feeling. Our brain is wired to look for that next dopamine hit, the small improvements, the 1% every day better sort of thing. So it doesn't matter how good you are. I really, truly don't think that anybody is ever in a maintenance phase. I think that they just are lying to themselves and saying like, hey, like I just want to maintain my progress. And maybe if you're doing it for more of the mental benefits and you just like to stay in your routine, that's great. But if I could give you a red pill and I could say, would you rather have the same results for what you're doing or better results with more efficiency in the gym? Like you aren't doing more work, you're doing the same amount of things, maybe even less, but more efficiently, strategically, and you're going to get better results. I don't think anybody in here would say like, yeah, like no to that. And if you did, bro, let me know. So you're out of your gosh darn mind. But in all seriousness, though, like training phases, right? So we have phase 1, 2, 3, and 4, just as an example. 6-week phases. Each one of these phases is 6 weeks. Now, at times, I might see that, like, hey, we're 2 phases in and we're seeing a ton of progress. Like, the phases are working really well. Sometimes, once in a blue moon, I'll extend that 6-week phase to 7 or 8 weeks, or maybe 10. And like, hey, like if nothing's working, I mean, if it, you know the saying, right? Like if nothing's broken, why would we change things? If everything we're doing is working phenomenal, I don't need to make changes. Like, let's just keep riding out the progress, making more success. And you also don't want to mess with things when you're seeing good results. It's like that with anything. If something's working, bro, I'm gonna leave it as is. And yeah, maybe we exemplify things, we magnify things, we improve, make small tweaks. But like, if it's working, as a general rule of thumb, like, I'm not touching it, bro. You're gonna continue to ride that wave until it stops working, and then we make an adjustment. But like most of the time, like we have these phases for a reason, right? Like most of the time, our body does get adjusted, and so this is why we have different phases. So I say that to say that, like, most importantly, like progressing and having training phases is crucial. There are also times on the contrary where you're not making the progress that you'd like within that 6 weeks, and it might be 4 weeks in and we realize, like, okay, it's been a couple of weeks and we're stagnating. Let's adjust things. And this is not a bad thing to think about. This is why you have a coach. Working with somebody that knows what they're doing is able to make strategic adjustments when the time is right without rushing things, right? But when, okay, like if it's really not working, let's make a change. And that's not a bad thing, because you're just getting data, right, from your own body and from these metrics. That's why I have you guys track a lot of these data points, and I track them for you, because I want to make sure we have more data rather than little, right? The more data we have, the better results we can make, the more tweaks we can make if necessary. But you also don't want to mess with something if it's not working, and you also want to make sure you let it play out. If there's maybe sometimes you run into a wall for a week, but then on that second week, your body starts to pick up steam and make the progress you want. So now that I say all that, right, we have the different phases. I just want to, like for a quick couple of minutes, touch on these, right? So we have these 4 phases, and progressing could be a couple things, right? It could be like, okay, one, you say you do 4 exercises here. So this could be, I'm not going to go super in depth, but you could do 4 exercises, right? With 4 sets each. Each set, you have 10 reps, right? Second phase could be as simple as, okay, let me say this. I like to make sure that we change not just one variable, but 2 at a bare minimum, because I want to make sure that inside of this macro phase, this is a macro phase. Phase 1 going into phase 2, into 3, into 4. These are macro phases. Within the macro phases, there are micro phases, which means that in each program, each phase 1, there are going to be modifications to day 1 workout, day 2, day 3, etc., 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 week 1, and then week 2, week 3, etc. And you're even going to structure down to the point of each exercise, right? Like, okay, like how many exercises are you doing, in which order, right? And how much weight, how much reps. And so, like, there are so many different layers into the micro phasing, but we're going to keep it on the macro level because I don't want to confuse you guys, and I know that you are picking up what I'm putting down. But for example, just to make it easy, simple math, 4 exercises, 4 sets each, 10 reps a pop, right? So now phase 2, we're going to do 8 exercises times 4 sets times 10 reps. So we have double the amount of volume, right? Another way you could do this could be 4 exercises times 8 sets. So the same exercises, 8 sets, 10 reps, right? And that's just a different way to do it. But like I just mentioned, I want to be able to change multiple variables at once this way. And from a strategic standpoint, making sure that is a good move. But if I feel it's a good move, which a lot of times it is, then it's like, okay, if we can make better progress, why not, right? So the downfall to it is in the future, yeah, like that baseline threshold is going to be a little bit higher. It's going to be harder to make the progress you were after. But the upside is, if you can get efficient with these things, then you can continue doubling the volume and making even better progress than you otherwise thought, right? And if I could say, like, hey, like, you're going to make double the amount of progress in the next phase, in the next, like, 4 weeks or 6 weeks, But in the following phase, it might be tougher to make progress. Like, I don't think you need to worry so much with that. And if so, like, we'll figure out when we get there, right? Like, if we're into a wall, then I'd rather run into a wall. I don't know about you guys, but I'd rather run into some sort of hurdle and not make near as much progress in 6 months, but get faster results and faster progress in 2 months from now, then wait 2 months and then 6 months hope that we get better progress. You know what I'm saying? So, anyways, another way you could do this would be like, okay, because we want to change multiple variables, and this is ideally how I typically do it. So, like, okay, we're doing, instead of 4 exercises of 4 sets, now we're doing 8 exercises of, let's call it 8 sets, right? And again, just for simple math here, and like, boom. So, and you're doing 10 reps, right? Another way, even more advanced, could be like, okay, 8 exercises of 8 sets for 12 reps, right? And it's just, you continue this cycle, right, all the way through the phases. Now, that's just one approach to take. Within each of these phases, we have, different amount of repetitions. So we want to make sure that, hey, each exercise, we're doing the same amount of reps. And then each time we do the workout, whether it be day 1, day 2, day 3 in your program, whatever, each time you do it every week, you're adding weight to the bar, right? You're adding more reps, you're slowing down the tempo, and you're also changing multiple factors, multiple of these variables. And again, I told you I'm not going to go super in depth this because I don't want to throw too much at you guys. And you don't, truth be told, you don't need all this, because I want you guys to have the frameworks of this, not the answers themselves. Because if you have the frameworks, you can make the answers, and you can get to that 6th and final pillar, which is the implementation, the intuitive implementation phase, where you can actually understand how this works. The last thing I want you guys to get from this program is, John gave me all the answers to my questions, but he never taught me how to actually make the conclusions for myself. I don't want that. I want you guys to understand how this all works. So just going on not to go on a tangent, but like, you have the exercises, right? How many exercises? You have the number of sets. You have the volume, which is like the sets plus the reps and like all this stuff, blah, 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 right? Another quick thing I just want to touch on is exercise selection. So for example, let's talk about back, right? So you have something like a lat pull down, which is going to give you a lot more tension at the top range of the motion, which means that you're stretching your lats, your back muscles. For those of you guys that don't know, I think you all do, but your lat pull downs, you're going to stretch your lats a lot more, put a lot more tension at the top there, right? So maybe in addition to the other things, or instead of the other things, the next phase would be here, instead of doing a lat pull down, right? Now we're doing a lat pullover, right? So you're getting a little bit more tension in, depending on the setup, it all varies, but maybe that middle range of motion, right? So now what that in a nutshell means is you're just putting more tension on the target muscle from a different angle. So you might have, your inside your lats, you have, all these different muscle fibers. You might have some of the fibers that are stronger, more defined, more muscular than the rest. And so now you're just, swapping through these, right? It could be a different example of like, okay, you're doing something like a dumbbell goblet squat, and you're progressing into a barbell squat, like a back squat, and then you progress from there into a front squat, and then you just continue the cycle, right? Same thing with like a chest pressing motion. Maybe you start with a machine chest press, and then you move next into a flat barbell bench press, and then you move into a flat dumbbell bench press, right? And you're just putting a different stimuli and getting a different response from your muscles. So that is, the importance of training phases in a nutshell. And I'm not going to go super in depth, because this is why we have our one-on-one calls. This is why, like, you guys have the course modules and the videos, because it's going to help you unlock some of these things. But I don't want to throw too much at you. And I think that's all you really need to understand how to progress properly. So the next video we're going to talk about is the importance of optimal rest time. And I'll see you in the next one.